So this video is going to be a little bit different, and it covers a topic that is very forefront of mind, largely because we recently pruned a decent bit of the business to focus on what matters. And that's exactly the topic of this video is focus. I think one of the most common problems I see with a lot of entrepreneurs, especially newer entrepreneurs, but even guys at scale, is mastering the art of focus. And this is something you will struggle with for your entire career. It is never something that is black and white. It will always be an obstacle to overcome or something to put a lot of focus on, is where you're focusing, ironically enough. And so in this video, I want to break down what focus is, why your focus is important, and then how to actually pick what to focus on. And this is based on my current experiences, not what may be best. Again, because we're actively learning how to focus. So right away, what is focus? Focus, simply put, is where you pay attention or where you put your attention. It's very, very simple. Where do I spend all of my day focused on? Typically, when you have a high degree of focus, you'll experience what we call the flow state, which is just where everything around you begins to disappear. It's when you're on a date and you're really vibing with someone. It's when you're working on a project and all of a sudden you look up, you're like, holy shit, I'm running late to this thing because I was so sucked in. It's when you're driving and all you focus on is the road and you're enjoying the road, or you're listening to a good song and all you can think about is the music. All focus is an induced flow state. The other thing that focus is, when you've mastered it, is what we like to call the North Star, where all of your decisions must flow through. Every decision you make must flow through what you're focused on. If I'm focused on the wrong thing, I will make the wrong decisions. Very simply put, that's all focus is. Now, why is focus important? This, I like to use a pretty cool analogy. I grew up a Patriots fan, so I want you to think about focus as Tom Brady versus, let's say, I don't even know other guys' numbers. So Lamar Jackson. I don't follow football like I used to. So Tom Brady, one of the best football players of all time, 7 Super Bowls, arguably the best athlete in the US. Lamar Jackson, or arguably the best football player ever. I don't think anybody really deny that. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the game today. Biggest difference, 7 rings, 0 rings. However, Lamar Jackson has been an MVP and so has Brady. Now, here's what's interesting. Arguably, Tom Brady is the worst athlete by far. He's slow, not super athletic, tall guy, but nothing special when you look at him. And realistically, he's an everyday dude. If you look at Tom Brady's combine photos, which I'll pop up somewhere on the screen, you'll be like, that guy won 7 rings? It doesn't make any sense. Whereas if you look at Lamar Jackson, he's extremely athletic, extremely fast, extremely quick. He's built like a pro athlete. I mean, again, I'll pull up a picture somewhere on the screen. Yet he has 0 rings. What is the only difference? Very simply put, it's what did they focus on? You see, Brady was focused on rings, whereas somebody like Lamar Jackson is focused on stats. And here's what I mean by that. If I'm focused on stats over rings, I'm going to be focused on performing to the highest of my own ability, because again, I'm focused on my stats. Now, is this true? Arguably not. And here's the other thing I want to mention with stats. If I'm focused on stats, I will also be focused on making as much money as possible. Very, very different than if I'm Tom Brady, I'm focused on rings. And here's what's very interesting is there's a concept in football where if somebody cuts across the middle, your receiver is at risk of getting hit by a linebacker, which is massive dude relative to a lot smaller guy. And so there's a high degree of injury, concussions, whatever. Most quarterbacks would make the throw and put their receivers at risk because they want the yards, they want to get the first down. Brady would not, given the situation, because his goal was to get the team healthy to the Super Bowl, not make the throw. Notice how the focus changes the decision-making process. And so that's the big thing I want to mention with the North Star specifically and why it's important, because where I focus my time now determines my outcome. If you're an entrepreneur, you've probably heard the saying, who, not how. Why is this saying so powerful? Because if you put the focus on the who, that person will figure out the how. Whereas if I put my focus on the how, now I've got to figure it out. And now my time is sucked up. Shift in focus, same problem, but instead of looking at how, I'm going to look at who. The entire solution changes. And so that is the why focus is so important, because it orients your entire decision-making process. And so in business, how do we determine what to focus on? This is why business is so easy. As a business owner, what is my goal? It's to make more money. That's it. That's all I need to focus on. And if you're curious what you probably should be focusing on based on where you're at, link below, you can fill it out, book a call, speak to myself, or remember my team. We'll help you orient in terms of what the best place to put your focus is as a business owner in the info space or capital raising space. Or in general, if you're just looking to run paid ads, feel free to book a call too. But we use money typically as a North Star. Now, below that, do we do cash flow or do we do enterprise value? Are we focused on revenue or are we focused on net profit? All of these different focal points will change the outcome of your decision-making process. And there isn't necessarily a wrong place to focus. You just need to understand what that focus will then do to your decision-making process. And so let's say I focus on cash flow and let's say I'm focused on net profit. Well, as an advertiser, if I'm at a 7x ROAS, but I want to make more net profit, I'll be fine dropping to a 3x. as long as my net profit increases. And so this is the principle of focus at its core. Is again, as an advertiser, if I'm getting a 7x return on my ad spend, but I want to optimize for more net profit, I'll be fine with a 3x as long as I make more net profit. It allows you to make decisions a lot more effectively, because what will happen is we fall into some form of this who not how complex, to where if we look at all the metrics, let's say click-through rate, CPM, show rate, close rate, whatever, and let's say our show rate is contracting, we may end up spending all of our focus on the show rate and not scale spend, which leads us to stay stuck. In some cases, we end up losing money because we're too focused on solving a problem that has nothing to do with the focus of the organization. Now, from a daily actions perspective, how can we look at this? Let's say I make $1,500 an hour in my organization at the time. Any task that is worth less than $1,500 an hour, meaning if I did that task for 24 hours out of the day, I made $1,500 an hour. Any task less than that, let's say it's a task is worth $600 an hour, I'm going to delegate that to somebody else. I'm not going to do that shit. No point. If I have a task that's $2,000 an hour, I'm going to do it. Of course I'm going to do it. So I'm just going to increase and I'm going to do this task now. Let's say I now bump up to $2K an hour. I have a task come in at $1,750 an hour. It was higher than my old task, but it's not higher than my current hourly. So what do? I outsource it. That's it. My focus should always remain on the activities that drive the most revenue. And so this video, it's not super long because the goal here is just to explain this very simple concept of focus, but you need to understand what focus is. You need to understand why it's important, how to pick your North Star, and the impacts of your focus. If I'm focused on the who, not the how, I'm going to get more done. If I'm focused on net profit over enterprise value, it's going to be a very different thing. Like think about a software company. A software company, because they typically are raising money and because they're looking for a massive exit, their cash flow isn't the most important thing to the business. Now, obviously you need it, but it's not the most important thing because they're looking for an exit. If I run an info business, typically info businesses don't exit. There are cases where they typically don't. And so what are they? They're just fucking cash flow businesses. So what do? I spend all my time focused on generating cash flow. I don't necessarily care about creating enterprise value. I just want to shit out $1 million a month or whatever it might be for you, a couple $100,000 a month. And so that's the key concept of focus that I believe is extremely important for all founders and entrepreneurs to understand. And the other way to figure out where you should be putting your focus is what we like to call bottleneck analysis. If you want us to do a bottleneck analysis for your business, there's a link below. You can click, book, call their team. We'll just leave it at that. Because a lot of business owners, they'll run around, pardon my French, pretty much fondle themselves and be like, oh, I need to fix this. I need to fix that. Oh my God. In reality, if you just did a bottleneck analysis, you know exactly where to put your focus. If my funnel is perfect, I'm just going to scale spend. If my funnel is not perfect, I'm going to look, again, going back to what we did before, I'm going to look at my click-through rate. I'm going to look at my CPM. I'm going to look at my show rate. I'm going to look at my close rate. I'm going to look at my collection rate. I'm going to figure out what's the contraction point. Again, let's just assume it's show rate. That's where I put my focus because that's what actually needs to be solved. There's another video on my channel about decision making. I encourage you to run through that because that'll walk you through like how do you think through actually making the decision of what to focus on. But if you just perform a simple bottleneck analysis on wherever you're at in your business, you can do this internal to a funnel. You can do this by looking at the business as a whole. You look at your balance sheet or your P&L. You can look at your funnel. You can look at different departments like marketing or sales. And this will tell you, if I do a bottleneck analysis, what's the focus? Do I need to drive up margin? Do I need to fix my show rate? Is my marketing team bloated? Do I need to prune them? Whatever it is, do the bottleneck analysis. You'll figure out what to focus on. Other than that, guys, I'm going to keep this super short. If you like more content like this, like, comment, subscribe, book that call. I'll see you in the next one.